Hello YouTube, so today we're going to take a look at the latest Starship to blow up, and this one blows up in the fog, which I'm still not quite sure why they decided to launch it in the fog, but they did, and spoiler, it blows up before it even lands, which I'm going to give you some ideas for. And Elon jokes that high production rate solves many ills, and at least the crater was in the right place. Bear in mind that he was talking about having this ready to fly as a sort of rivaled planes kind of next year, that sort of thing, and they would carry 1,000 people or so when they fly these like planes. Anyway. So let's take a look at their stream. The stream was very glitchy, by the way. So here we go. We're
10,
closing on
8,
takeoff.
7, 6, 5,
5, 4, 3. Do we have
3,
sound on this?
2, 1. Lift off.
So it's very glitchy, the stream. So I'm not sure where I went from dark to light there, but you'll notice some flames kick up around here somewhere. Yeah, see, it's locked up. There you go, flames. Flames around here. Those shouldn't really be there. This is
T
a
plus
view.
33 seconds.
This is a view from the inside, where these are the baffles to stop the fuel. You know, this is just liquid oxygen, or is that oxygen? It's methane, I think, right? Oxygen would be bluer. But anyway, it's just liquid methane, and it sloshes around. And if it sloshes around, and, well, that can, if you've got tens of tons of fuel sloshing around, it kind of makes it difficult to fly an object. You know, even when they're flying transport planes, they've got to make sure everything is bolted down, because if you shift the center of gravity loads, you're going to have a bad time. So this is just a view on the inside of one of the cryo tanks. I reckon that's the methane tank.
Starship test vehicle number 11 ascending over Starbase in South Texas.
See, stream's
1
locked up
kilometer
again.
altitude.
Right? Periodically does that, which, not a good sign. This I'm not so keen about either. That looks like nitrogen
You've heard the call
dioxide.
out. We're over 1 kilometer up. Views from the external camera on Starship number 11 looking back towards the Starbase facility in the fog in South Texas.
Not quite sure what the deal is there. Anyway, so it goes up,
climb on power
and you're looking backwards, right? This is an important one to bear in mind. You're looking backwards with this wing here, right? So you're about halfway down, looking back, and the stream's frozen again, and it's blacked out. And now we're back again, and we're still going up on one engine, who's now burning clean for some reason, and it's locked up again. So there's lots of these glitchy things.
T plus 3.5 minutes. You can see with the camera view, we have shut down the second of the 3 engines as planned. We're now slowly climbing to the final 10-kilometer altitude on the power of the single Raptor engine.
So
once we're at apogee, we'll hover shortly,
absolutely minuscule, the altitude that they're dealing with here.
And then,
right, 10 kilometers is nothing. That's is that higher than Everest? What's Everest? 6, isn't it? Anyway, it's you'll recall in one of my previous Elon Musk videos, I covered that
from the Starbase.
Your main problem with rockets is going fast, not going high. So, just going up to 10 kilometers is nothing. And
while we're waiting to reestablish video connection with the vehicle, we have shut down the third of the 3 Raptor engines as planned. We're now beginning the horizontal maneuver back down to the landing pad at the Starbase facilities. As we get close to land, we will ignite the 3.
So, very flaky on the video.
Engines flip to vertical, and then
it's
land
frozen
on the thrust of a single Raptor engine.
And now we're moving
4
again.
4 minutes, 40 seconds of counting, and it looks like we've got some camera views back again.
It looks like we're looking downwards, yeah? right? My suspicion is this thing never went down into a nose down. Yeah, they call it a belly flop. I'm not quite sure why, but they want to do it that way. But if you want to do a belly flop, you can't come down arse backwards, and it looks like this is coming down arse backwards. The arse is pointing towards the ground here. It's more or less flat, right?
6 kilometers altitude.
Again, you're looking backwards, and you've got your horizon here when the video doesn't lock up.
T plus
And that's me.
5 minutes. We're passing through 5 kilometers. A nice view from the exterior camera showing one of the flaps on the
Downrange
Starship
cross-range
test
control
vehicle number
airport,
11.
But what you'll notice is as we get lower and lower, the arse starts to sink downwards. And I'm not so sure it's meant to be doing that, right? The arse sinks lower and lower down. And this might be a matter of fuel slosh or something like that. Yeah, So, actually, no, it all makes sense now. I know what happened.
2 kilometers altitude.
Just figured it out. Right. So they go down and they light it up and it blows
1
almost
kilometer
immediately.
altitude.
T plus 545. We've just passed through 1 kilometer altitude, getting ready for the
And
relay.
they light it up and the whole thing explodes. And if you actually take a look at their... there's some wide-angle shots, and it basically you can see it just lights up all the fog with the explosion, and then a few seconds later, it starts to rain down debris. I now know what happened, right? And it's kind of obvious if you think about it. If you take a look at the design of these things, there is some debate, or we just take what's online. Some people say that. What do we got? Some people say that the methane tank is on top and oxygen below. So what's that? That's methane on top. Or others have... they don't even label which tank's which. This is one of the early... Oh, you can't see that, sorry. This is one of the early Elon Musk things where, this is all just completely made up bullshit. This is where their header tanks were originally. They've now moved one of them up top. Now, when it takes off, these fuel tanks are basically empty because you're not going up that far. And here is another one. This one has the methane. This one's got oxygen on top, whereas this one had methane on top. But it doesn't really matter. The thing is, they share a common bulkhead. Right? So if you think about your center of gravity whilst all this is going on, you've got some fuel in this one and some fuel in this one. And that's going to give you some center of gravity. Let's just say, for sake of argument, that you crack the common bulkhead here, at which point all of the fuel just leaks down to the bottom and you come very bottom heavy, which is basically what you were seeing here, where it looks like the arse is just getting heavier and heavier on the spaceship. That's basically all the liquid oxygen or whatever leaking into the oh, come on. Well, okay. Looks like theirs isn't the only internet that's kind of struggling here. All right, let's hit refresh, see what that does for us. There we go. Super.
Engines on time as planned, and then descend the rest of a single Raptor and getting ready
So
for the...
it's, no, once you light them up, it explodes shortly afterwards. Here we go. Right, so this is the bit where the arse is getting lower and lower, which is, right, with all planes, they're all geared around a center of gravity. Now, this being said, I don't know exactly what the flight details are. It might be that this was part of their plan, but the fact that it blows up shortly after they light up the engines kind of suggests that you've actually had a crack in these fuel tanks. Well, okay, this is just an explanation that explains everything. You have a crack in the common bulkhead here. The methane sloshes down to the lower tank, which now means this is a bomb. Once you mix liquid oxygen and liquid methane together, you have a bomb. And the second you light up those engines, the whole thing will just explode. Which is basically what... Yeah, in fact, it gels almost perfectly. So you get a burn fine whilst with the fuel in the fuel lines. That's why the engine lights up okay. But then all of a sudden you're pumping an explosive mixture into the engines, which just blows the whole works. Oh, you can't see anything while I'm pointing at. Sorry. Right, so you get crack in the common bulkhead here. All the methane drops down to the lower tank, shifts the center of gravity down to the arse. And this is an explosive mixture, but you still got the fuel in the pipelines, right? So you still got whatever oxygen in this pipeline, or methane in this pipeline, and oxygen in this one. That's why when you light up the engines, they light up fine. Until, of course, you have emptied the pipelines and you start pumping the explosive mixture in the tank into the engines, and then the whole thing just blows. And these rockets are incredibly fragile. They really are. They're fuel tanks with the lightest possible fuel tanks that you can make with some engines on them. And obviously, so if you think about it, this thing is only going to take 100 or so tons to space, and for every ton that you can save on the weight of the fuel tanks is a ton extra you can take into orbit. So almost always rockets are as light as you can possibly make them. So anyway, that's my interpretation of what happened here. That's why it blows up the second they light up the engines. So it's all based on
kilometers,
the
a nice view
premise.
from the exterior camera showing one of the flaps on the
Downrange
Starship
cross-range
test
control
vehicle
air
number
support
11.
Right. I'm not seeing any. Is there a shift in the flaps there as the? No, there's no shift in the flaps as the arse drops down. Right. So why is the arse dropping down if there's no change in the flaps? I mean, the most obvious thing is the center of gravity is shifted on the craft, and then
2
of course you
kilometers
light up the
altitude.
engines, and you're good. Whilst you've just got the residual that's in the pipelines, that burns fine. And then the second the rest of it reaches the engine
1
stall.
kilometer altitude.
T plus 545, we've just passed through 1 kilometer altitude, getting ready for the relight.
Yeah, so you light the engines and immediately then it blows up. And that's the sound of bits of the spacecraft raining down. Okay, so that is my interpretation of what happened on the latest SpaceX, which for some truly bizarre reason they launched in the fog. I still don't get that. You need to be able to see what's going on. The idea that this is going to be ready in a year is a complete joke. And this is, ignoring... all you're worried about at the moment is going fast, which is basically sticking some engines on a fuel tank. They've not got round to any of the serious stuff yet, which will of course be, getting life support, being able to get this to keep people alive for an extended period of time. I've been going over the Apollo 13 logs recently in some considerable detail, and the complexity of what you need to have basically a complete biosphere this small that will not kill people is mind-blowingly complicated. Right? This is it's basically what's been done before, but slightly bigger. This is actually a far more complicated dealie than what's going on at the back end here. And of course, there are no designs for what's going on at the top here. At the moment, it is just a empty space. And they've not even got on to the more sophisticated things about, how do you get this thing back through the atmosphere? Anyway, that's not... I wanted to take a quick look at some of the comments. Looks like Engine 2 had issues on the Ascent, didn't reach blah, 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 blah. Right, the only way it can really explode catastrophically in flight, if you think about it, is you need the oxygen and the methane to have mixed at some point. This is what happened with the last one that blew up on the pad. It's not entirely unsurprising. They have huge fuel tanks here. You don't expect them to need much of a knock to break them. Something significantly happened shortly after landing. Burn should start. Yeah. Yeah. I'll bet you dollars to donuts that it was their main bulkhead failed in some way, shape, or form. 15 to launch onto the pad in a few days. Hundreds of design improvements. Dude, you've not even... Yeah. It's, to me, kind of amazing that... yeah. People think that Elon Musk is some kind of great genius. Failures is the pillars of success. Yes and no, right? If you were doing this 50 years ago when you really didn't know what you were doing, then you could argue yes. The thing is that, even when they were building the space shuttle, this wasn't their motto, that we're going to fail our way to the top. I really don't see this as working out. People often paint me as being pessimistic or anti-Musk, but the simple reality is it's just a big rocket. This solves almost none of the problems of getting you to Mars, or to the moon for that matter. In fact, I will actually be doing a in-detailed video about the Apollo 13 mission because it is absolutely fascinating. If you've seen the movie, it goes bang and they instantly know that they all know they're in trouble and it's drama, blah, blah, blah. Not a bit of it. It takes them about an hour to figure out that they're in the shit. And then they have a further hour to realize that actually they might be so deep in the shit that it's just not true, right? You see, for people to survive in space, you need some of this stuff, oxygen. And on the command module, the service module, sorry, very efficiently designed, I must say. They worked out that they needed electricity to run everything. They needed oxygen to breathe, and they needed water to drink. So they came up with this brilliant design that killed all three birds with one stone, where they would have these fuel cells that would supply them with power, and they generate electricity by reacting hydrogen and oxygen. It's got the added bonus that you only need one oxygen tank that gives both oxygen to the crew and oxygen to the fuel cells. And on top of that, when you react the oxygen with the hydrogen, you get water, which you can drink. And then they have, the disaster is basically they have two tanks. One of them explodes. All of the oxygen is lost in an instant, which means that it takes quite a while to work out that the tank isn't actually there anymore. And the thing is that it also damages the second oxygen tank. Now they are really boned in that oxygen they need to breathe. That oxygen they need to run the electricity system. So within about an hour, they're not going to have any more oxygen, any more electricity, or any more water. The last one was probably not foremost in their minds. But, so turns out, of course, they managed to save themselves by going over to the lunar module. But they still have this, it's absolutely fascinating listening to them try to work out the problem in real time. So it turns out, had the disaster happened on the way back from the moon, they would have all died very quickly, within a couple of hours, that sort of thing. Because once they ran out of oxygen, it turns out it's not the oxygen. They would have lost power, and once they've lost power, they couldn't run the CO2 scrubbers, and it would have been the buildup of CO2 that would have killed them. And yeah, there would have been absolutely nothing. If once they'd have jettisoned the lunar module, which they would have done in lunar orbit, if the oxygen container had blown up on the way back, they would have all died. Right? So, and this just gives you a brief feel of how much of a pain in the ass this bit is going to be, right? This bit just makes you go fast. It's not actually terribly sophisticated. This bit is this bit is the bit that's tricky. Anyway, so I'll leave you with that. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you next time.